Hi everybody, this is going to be a video on Paul McCartney's Give My Regards to Broadstreet, which was a film project he undertook in 1984. The film was written by Paul McCartney and directed by a gentleman named Peter Webb. I'm not sure what his other film credits were, but essentially Paul had wanted to get back into the film making, I don't know what you want to call it. He wanted to get back into making movies ever since the Magical Mystery Tour experience. And so it was an idea that had been germinating for a while, and finally in 1984 he received the financial backing of 20th Century Fox, had his movie script, and pressed forward with it. I think there were a number of people who told Paul that it might not be the best idea, but Paul, being determined, went through with it. And the result was Give My Regards to Broadstreet. The plot essentially is that Paul McCartney has entrusted the master tapes of his latest album to an associate with a checkered past with some criminal activity. It's not really disclosed what those criminal activities were, but the guy's name is Harry, and so Paul gives Harry the tapes, and then Harry mysteriously vanishes. And so the rest of the movie is Paul trying to track down these tapes so that he can get them to the factory so that the album can be pressed. He's worried that Harry may have bootlegged the tapes or possibly sold them. And that is about the gist of it. Through the course of the movie, we see Paul McCartney sitting in board meetings. He's sitting in limousines, riding in limousines, doing some recording, some of which are new songs, some of which are remakes of his Beatles and Wings classics. And so it's a fairly enjoyable movie if you are a Paul McCartney fan or if you're a Beatles fan. However, if you don't care for the Beatles or have a mild interest in Paul McCartney, I don't think you're going to find this movie that interesting. I look at it as more about an hour-and-a-half music video rather than, you know, a movie with a substantial plot. It's kind of like an update to A Hard Day's Night. Ringo is in it, Linda McCartney is in it. I understand Paul tried to get George to put in a cameo, but George declined. And so throughout the movie there's different musical vignettes. It's really a Paul McCartney musical, to kind of put it in the simplest terms. I would say I do enjoy it. As a Paul McCartney fan, it's not something that I would watch time and time again, but occasionally to put it on, it's enjoyable enough. But it's not something I would show the rest of my family. It's not a movie I would put on for somebody who did not care for Paul McCartney or was lukewarm. So I'm going to show my Give My Regards to Broadstreet collection. This is the DVD. Kind of a plain looking cover. I'm not sure why they didn't go with the original movie poster, or at least something. Paul McCartney's name is not even on the cover of the DVD, so I really can't explain why that is. I don't know if there's any other DVD copies of this, but this is the version that I have. This is the soundtrack album, and I'll discuss the soundtrack album separately from the movie, because I think it does bear some discussion about why did Paul feel the need to re-record some of the Beatles songs, and also why did he record songs that were on albums just a few years previous to the release of this album. So we'll start with the Beatle tracks. Good Day Sunshine, I don't care for at all on here. It's just a very watered down version, and I don't think it does justice at all to the song. I much prefer the version on Revolver. There's Yesterday, which is fine enough, because Yesterday, it's an acoustic song at its heart, and I think Paul does a decent job. Here, There, and Everywhere, also, again, it's not an improvement over the Revolver version. I'm not sure why he did it other than to remind people, hey guys, I was in the Beatles and I wrote some of their most classic songs. There's no other way to explain it for me. But Paul can do what he wants to do. It's his movie, fine. There's Wanderlust, which of course was on the McCartney 2 album, which this album came out in 1984 and McCartney 2 was released in 1980. So we're just talking, that was just 4 years ago. And Ballroom Dancing had been released on Tug of War, which was 1981. So not more than a few years removed from that album. And the version is not that different. Then there is Silly Love Songs, which, you know, I kind of dig this update. It's fun to kind of hear it in an 80s context, whereas the 70s version he had done with Wings had more of a disco feel to it. This has kind of got more of an 80s pop sound to it. And then Not Such a Bad Boy is one of the few newer songs on here, but it's definitely my favorite on this album. No More Lonely Nights was the ballad with David Gilmour on lead guitar, which is very cool. No Values was another new song on here, which I think is a pretty decent Paul rock and roll song. And then For No One, again, he seemed to, for whatever reason, he picked 3 songs off Revolver, and For No One on here is not going to make you forget the Revolver version. I don't think it's done as well. It's decent enough just to hear Paul's solo version, but again, the version on Revolver is head and shoulders above this version. Eleanor Rigby is okay. I kind of like the Eleanor's Dream, which is an extended instrumental suite. I really do like the different suites and things that are part of that track, so I do enjoy that. The Long and Winding Road, do not like at all. It's just a contemporary version of it, almost like a smooth jazz version of Long and Winding Road. I can do without it. And so I'm just realizing this now, the vinyl does not have the song So Bad, which was on Pipes of Peace, the album right before that, but the cassette does. That's one of the tracks on here. And again, I'm not sure why he felt the need to redo that song. It isn't that much different from the song that had been released a year earlier. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me. I'll show you the gatefold for this album, which has some different photographs. The inner sleeve has some lyrics. And it is this is the side 1 label. And then this is the label for side 2. The movie bombed at the box office like you might expect. There aren't that many Paul McCartney fans to really have it gross much at the box office. And the critics really savaged, getting my words mixed up. The critics hated it, I'll put it that way. It was not well received by critics. They found it boring. They found the plot uninteresting, which, you know, I get, but as a Paul McCartney fan, I still find some merit in it. So this is the cassette, which has the extra track, So Bad. That's the cassette itself. And then the inlay card, or whatever you want to call it, J card, has the song lyrics, and then the photographs that were in the gatefold on the vinyl. And I originally had this on cassette and then got the CD version and then finally the vinyl version. And I did not see this in theaters at the time. I was a Beatles fan then, but I'm not sure why I didn't go with my parents to see this movie. I saw it on cable when it came out. They played it on repeat, so I watched it many times on HBO or whatever the cable station was that was playing that. This is the DVD, I'm sorry, the CD version. And this has the song lyrics and the photographs that were in the gatefold. And that's that. I know that many Paul McCartney fans do not regard this album very highly. It's definitely in probably my bottom 5 Paul McCartney albums. And I listen to it mostly out of nostalgia. You know, it's just not a Paul McCartney album that I reach for if I'm going to listen to Paul. But from time to time, I'll put certain tracks on, and that's good enough. So anyway, that's my video. I'm curious what you think of the movie. Have you seen it? What do you think about it? What do you think about the album? How do you feel about the re-recordings of the Beatles songs or Paul McCartney's previous work? I hope you're all doing well and stay safe.